I, Shivya Dogra, on behalf of GuruKPO.com, welcomes you. Here I stand before you to explain on the topic AIDS. What are AIDS? What is HIV? What are its symptoms? What is preventions? And what are its measured symptoms which affects your body? I'll tell you that. So here it goes. Children infected and affected by HIV AIDS. Now there are certain questions which will come in front of you and I'll tell you about their answers. What do you know about HIV AIDS? What is HIV? What is AIDS? How is the disease transmitted? In what part of the world is HIV AIDS most prevalent? Who is the vulnerable in contracting to HIV AIDS? So all these questions I'll tell you. Now, there are certain terms regarding this disease I'll explain you all. First is HIV, that is the human immunodeficiency virus. It is a retrovirus that attacks the cells of the immune system. HIV is transmitted through an exchange of body fluids, example, exposure to infected blood during sexual activity with an infected individual or by sharing needles. It can also pass from an infected mother to her child. HIV is the virus that eventually causes AIDS. Now what's AIDS? AIDS is an acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Diagnosis is made when symptoms that indicate the disease, primarily a decrease in the number of immune system cells in a person's bloodstream, are identified by a doctor in an HIV positive person. Next is CRC. The Convention on the Rights of the Child is an international treaty that recognizes the human rights of the children defined as persons up to the age of 18 years. It ensures the rights to survival, development, protection, and participation of all children without discrimination. Next is CSEC. It's commercial sexual exploitation of children. Comprises sexual abuse by the adult and remuneration in cash or kind to the child or a third person or persons. The child is treated as a sexual object and as a commercial object. Now it's World Conference against CSEC. Now there are some basic facts which you all should know. Every minute, 5 people around the world between the ages of 10 and 24 are infected with HIV. There are 2.5 million children under the age of 15 living with the disease worldwide. In sub-Saharan Africa, the majority of new infections occurs among young people between the ages of 15 and 24. Of the 3 million who died of AIDS in 2003, 5 lakhs were children. The total number of children orphaned by AIDS is 13.2 million as of 2001 is expected to more than double by 2010. Now here it goes, where are children affected by HIV and AIDS are more? The total population is 3.2 million. So here is the whole world where I'll show where is the most vulnerable areas who is suffering from AIDS. First is Latin America, that is there is 45,000 people suffering from AIDS. Next is Caribbean, there is 20,000. In North America, it's 10,000. In Western Europe, it's 5,000. In North America and Middle East, it's 40,000. In Sub-Saharan Africa, it's 2.8 million. Eastern Europe and Central Asia, it's 16,000. East Asian Pacific, it's 4,000. South and Southeast Asia is 240,000. And in Australia and New Zealand, it's less than 200. Next is, why do children have HIV/AIDS? Most children under 15 who have HIV/AIDS are infected through their infected mothers, that is, through mother-child transmission. Next is, this occurs during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding after birth. Sexual activity, the main route of disease transmission, starts in adolescence for most people worldwide. Young people who are uninformed about HIV/AIDS transmission risk become infected. Poverty, lack of education, lack of medical resources, and the commercial sexual exploitation of children also help to spread HIV/AIDS among children worldwide. Now, which children are most affected by this disease? Adolescent girls and young women are at a disproportionately high risk of contracting HIV/AIDS. Girls are physiologically more vulnerable to infection. Gender-biased inequities means girls and women are more likely to be poor and powerless. Hence are more vulnerable to sexual exploitations and HIV/AIDS infection. Violence against girls in the form of forced or coerced sex or CSEC also increase their chances of becoming infected. Children who live on the streets and children who injected drugs are the sufferers from this virus. How are children infected? Children with HIV/AIDS have weaker immune system and are most susceptible to other illness. Children with HIV/AIDS may be stigmatized and or rejected from their families and communities. This discrimination fosters ignorance about HIV/AIDS and stigma against testing for treating the disease. This in turn makes it difficult to prevent the spread of HIV/AIDS. Children are orphaned when their parents die from HIV/AIDS. What is being done to help? NGOs and governments are working together to educate the public about HIV/AIDS and to direct individuals to clinics that offer free HIV testing. Researchers continue their efforts to find better treatments to help those with AIDS and ultimately a cure. However, new medicines are often too expensive for poor countries. Intellectual property rights also block the production of more affordable generic medicines. Some governments have increased funding and adopted legislation that help children with AIDS. Now here is a recap and discussion which we all discussed earlier. That is, how can HIV/AIDS be transmitted? How do children contract HIV? Who is most vulnerable? How can you prevent yourself from contracting HIV? How do you think people would react if you had HIV or AIDS? And what are the stigmas attached to HIV and AIDS? And what could organizations and government do to help HIV orphans? Now, what can you do? Educate yourself about HIV and AIDS. Contact local, state and national politicians for support for HIV/AIDS. Write letters asking for their opinions on HIV/AIDS. Talk to your parents about HIV/AIDS. Educate the adults in your life. Advocate for HIV/AIDS awareness. Begin a social awareness human rights club. Now, for more information, you can log on to these sites to know more about the disease, that is HIV and AIDS. So, at last, I'd like to conclude you all to know that we should stop AIDS. There is no cure or any other material to stop AIDS, but we can tell other people to stop that particular disease. Because if it will spread, it will affect the whole family, whole society, whole community, in short, the whole world. So, prevent disease, talk to your parents regarding this disease, that how we can stop this virus from spreading it to the world. Take some preventive measures so that you can stop this disease. As somebody has said, drop by drop you can fill the ocean. So at the same way, if one person will go ahead, 10 people will also follow that person and you can be able to stop this disease. So, at last, I only want to conclude, stop AIDS, talk to other people regarding this thing, and only wanted to tell you that by stopping this particular disease, you can stop the whole world from all these dangerous and immature particular disease. Thank you so much.